So in just a couple of hours, Trayvon Martin's parents are expected to speak at a news conference with the National Action Network. That news conference among several key developments, and right now all eyes are on this woman, Special Prosecutor Angela Corey. In less than 72 hours, Corey says she will release new information about the case. She will decide whether or not George Zimmerman will face charges for shooting Trayvon Martin. Here's what she told affiliate WJXT just a couple weeks ago.
Every criminal case has complications and details that have to be fully developed before any decisions can be made, and that's what we're expecting to do, is fully develop all of the facts and circumstances.
Fleshing out those facts and circumstances seem especially pressing right now after Zimmerman's attorneys held this news conference yesterday, making the shocking announcement that they were no longer representing Zimmerman. Martin Savage is on the ground in Sanford, Florida, working his sources to bring us the latest. So, Marty, you know more about this announcement that Corey is expected to make, right?
Well, here's what we know. I mean, we've got a clock that's ticking down to 72 hours, and you have to figure that if she would say, look, I'm going to make an announcement, it's probably going to be some sort of decision. I mean, short of that, anything short of that would be extremely disappointing and troubling. Because here's the thing. This community, especially Sanford, I know in conversations that I had recently with the mayor, they had been hoping to get some sort of official heads up from her office so that they could plan, maybe bring in extra law enforcement, at least be ready to respond to whatever the decision may be. Well, it appears that's what she's done. She said, look, 72 hours, both to the media and now, of course, to law enforcement, to the city of Sanford, to everyone, be ready. She's going to have an important announcement. We assume it means a decision, either to charge or not. Kara?
All right, so Martin, let's talk about this press conference where Zimmerman's attorneys talked and said they actually talked about his mental state and his whereabouts. Take a listen.
George Zimmerman, in our opinion, and from information made available to us, is not doing well emotionally, probably suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. For those who are engaged in the late Easter egg hunt looking for him, you can stop looking in Florida. Look much further away than that.
So what are you finding out, Marty? What more can you add to this?
Well, you know, I got to tell you, after doing this job for as long as I have, there are a few things that I really consider jaw-dropping anymore. But that was jaw-dropping. I was stunned. First of all, we thought that this announcement coming from the attorneys might be that they had worked out a deal where George Zimmerman would turn himself in. And this is the big announcement. But instead, it was the attorneys saying they had lost contact with George Zimmerman, that they were now basically resigning from being his representation. So all of us were just taken aback. And then by the amount of information that they were releasing, his state of mind, his possible whereabouts, he's not in Florida, long way away, on and on and on. I mean, we were just really shocked. I've reached out to a number of George Zimmerman's friends to get their reaction because one in particular was really surprised by the mental state that these attorneys painted because it seemed quite dire. But then, you know, I talked to Frank Taffy, and here's the quote that Taffy gave me. He's a friend of George Zimmerman. He said he spoke to George the day before yesterday, and he sounded clear, concise, and lucid. The exact opposite of what his attorneys were describing there. So again, we've got this disconnect, and we can't really know what to make of it.
And we're also hearing from Attorney General Eric Holder as well. What's he saying now?
Well, you know, keep in mind there, of course, is a separate but parallel federal investigation that's underway. He said that that is continuing. He couldn't talk too much about what has been uncovered because it is an ongoing investigation, but that we know that they are looking for any sort of civil rights crimes that may have been committed in this particular case. Even if Angela Corey comes out with her decision, it doesn't mean that the federal investigation, their possibility for prosecution ends. That goes on. We also know that there are representatives from the Community Services Department of the Department of Justice. They're here to try to ease the relationship in the community, simmer down some of the tensions, and act as a go-between on the local and federal level. So that's what he's referring to, but again, no indication of where their investigation's going.
All right. Martin Savage, thanks so much. Well, I want to talk more about that stunning development that Martin just talked about. Let's bring in our CNN legal analyst, Paul Callan. And the stunning development is exactly what Martin just told us about George Zimmerman and the fact that the attorneys make this announcement that they're not representing him anymore. There's mixed feelings or mixed reaction to his actual state of mind. What's your reaction to what we've heard today, Paul?
You know, I share Martin's observations that this is jaw-dropping to see attorneys do this because, you know, and I start out by saying, first of all, I'm not even sure that these guys are his attorney. They basically said they've never had one-on-one personal contact with him. It's only been telephone contact. And while theoretically you can establish an attorney-client relationship over the telephone, it's very, very rare. And here, where you have a man who's the suspect in the most highly publicized potential murder case in the country, I would think you'd want to meet with your client before you hold a press conference saying he's suffering from mental problems. So I'm stunned by it, and I think it's, I think a lot of lawyers would say it's not proper conduct by these attorneys to be making any public statements.
Well, where would they get that information? It's possible they haven't even talked to him and they're getting that from somebody else? Are they coming up with assumptions?
Well, Kira, there were news reports that they had never had a personal meeting with George Zimmerman and that, in fact, their only contact had been by the telephone. Now, we don't know where they're coming up with the post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis. Is that from talking to friends or from talking to him on the phone? I don't know. I haven't heard that a doctor's involved in the case. I do know if I were defending a man in a self-defense situation, I wouldn't want to portray him as an unstable mental, case. I would want to portray him as somebody who acted reasonably, acted in self-defense. This presentation at this press conference makes him look unstable, makes him look like he has mental problems, will hurt him in any criminal prosecution. So I'm very surprised.
So let me ask you this. If you were advising Zimmerman, if you had him on the phone, what would you tell him and what would be the next step for him?
Well, Zimmerman is making an enormous mistake in not sitting down with an attorney that he has trust in to map out his strategy going forward. Obviously, there are a lot of people in this country who support him, and he's probably raising money on this website that he opened up, but I'm sure other lawyers would volunteer to represent him. But he needs legal representation, and he needs a strategy going forward because there are a lot of forces that are mounting that, look like will result in his indictment. So he really does need to consult with counsel that he trusts. Obviously, these lawyers, he didn't have faith or trust in them.
All right, let's take a minute to listen to what Prosecutor Angela Corey told one of our affiliates, Paul WJXT, about this case. She talks about probable cause. Take a listen.
If you make an arrest on probable cause and you can't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, then that's a short window of time that the perpetrator will serve in jail. We always try to work with the police to build stronger cases before we make the arrest.
So what's she getting at here, Paul?
Well, what she's getting at is something that prosecutors everywhere know, and that is when the police go out, look at a crime, they can arrest on a fairly low standard, probable cause, which is just there's more reason to believe that you committed a crime than that you did not commit a crime. Very low standard. However, when the case is presented to a jury, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very heavy standard. So what she's basically saying is, I want to build my reasonable doubt case here if I'm going to proceed with this case. And she's hinting, I think, that she's looking at building a case, a stronger case than a mere, what she calls probable cause case.
Got it. Paul Callan, thanks so much.